You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based grief and loss podcast for Black women, where you will hear stories of miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility to learn there is a testimony in tragedy. You will learn how to heal, gain clarity, find hope and peace, and turn your pain into your purpose after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee.
Well, thank you so much, Stacy, for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. We're excited.
Yes. So I like to begin the interview with you sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Stacy Patterson from Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. I reside in Lewisville, Texas, currently with my husband, Edward Patterson, and our two children, Tania and Mackenzie. We've been married 5 years this past July, college sweethearts, but we've been together for a total of 15 years. My oldest daughter is 12 and my youngest is 6. So they're about 6 years apart. Oldest is in 7th grade and my youngest is in 1st grade. So we are a pretty young family. Pretty much we stay pretty busy between, our school activities and different things that we like to do. We do a lot of traveling when we can. I currently work in the IT industry, and my husband is in credit. He's a credit analyst right now. And then we also run a kind of like a little small family business that we're actually in the business of actually kind of just revamping. But we've recently launched a YouTube channel called It's a Patterson Thing on YouTube, where we kind of just showcase our daily life once or twice a week. We'll do different vlogs or just kind of talk through what we've got going on. And I was inspired to start the channel just after everything happened this year with us losing Emory. So that's about it about me.
Yes. Well, let's go into that story. So talk about your journey to motherhood and share with us your loss story.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I've been a mother for quite some time. Again, my oldest is 12. She was definitely a blessing to our family. And I became a mother at 23. I was about a sophomore, almost a junior in college. And we were together trying to navigate through college, got pregnant, and, we became parents. And we grew up together, raised her, and, continued to raise her. And we decided to obviously get married, and we had our second daughter, Mackenzie. And then we recently had really just came to a conclusion where we wanted to just grow our family, and we wanted to try for that boy. So, we were adamant about just completing our family and just having one more. Whether it was a boy or girl, we were going to be happy either way. And last November, I found out that I was pregnant, and we announced to the family over the Christmas holiday, kind of kept it a secret for a few weeks, just because we didn't want, to let the cat out the bag too soon, just because of just my prior history. So let me just go back. So my first daughter, I actually had her 8 weeks early. She was 32 weeks. And so I had her as a preemie. It was a pretty simple pregnancy up until that 32 week where I actually did deliver, and I went into preterm labor. At the time I was working in retail, and I really still don't know what caused me to go into preterm labor. Well, obviously I have my assumptions at this point, but I definitely didn't know then up until like the last year or so. And so we just assumed that it was because of the lifestyle I was living. I was very active and I was on my feet a lot. And by the time I got to the hospital in labor with her, I was too far dilated to prevent the labor from progressing. So I had her 32 weeks. She came out about 3 pounds, 12 ounces, and she was very healthy. And we were able to take her home at about 5.5 pounds. Second pregnancy with Mackenzie was a textbook pregnancy. 6 years later, I was a little bit older. I wasn't in the same industry, so I was sitting down most of the time during my full-time job. I did not have Mackenzie until I was about 39 weeks pregnant. I was actually induced with that pregnancy, and she just was really stubborn. She wouldn't come out, so my doctor induced me for that pregnancy. And we had her at 39 weeks. She was 6 pounds, 6 ounces, and she's been healthy ever since. So again, we got pregnant this past November. We announced to the family over the Christmas holiday, and we got over the Christmas holiday, went into the new year, and we actually had plans to just make a grand announcement to kind of all of our friends and our social media folks, that we associate with online. And we did a really cute photo shoot in February and announced to all of our social media platforms. And shortly after that, I remember coming back from Houston. We went down to visit some family, and I went to a regular checkup. At this point, I was about 20 weeks pregnant, 20 weeks and 5 days, and we were having a boy. And everything had been tracking, perfectly fine up until this point. Pregnancy had been, pretty smooth. I hadn't had any major issues. But because I was turning 35, I was actually seeing a specialist on top of my OBGYN. So I would see my OBGYN one day during the same week, and then I'd follow up an appointment with my specialist. So this appointment that I went to with the specialist was just on a Friday. And the appointment, started out normal, and everything just went, completely left at that appointment. I found out that my cervix had pretty much opened up, and there had been no signs or no warning signs that any of this had been happening. But she looked at the sonogram, and she basically says, it looks like I see some shadowing on the sonogram. I need to take a look. We need to do a transvaginal sono. Let me double check and see if what I'm seeing is correct. And so she did the sonogram, and she confirmed, yes, you're dilated. And, we've got a few options. So this is what we can do. So basically she offered to give me a transvaginal cerclage, which is the TVC, which would mean surgery. And that would, mean me actually going under, having to stay at the hospital. And the other option was, this could be how your cervix actually does during pregnancy. This could be pretty normal for you, but we don't know. But, you could go home, things could be quiet. She was like, but I'm not comfortable with sending you home. I think that we should, at least try to do the stitch. And so me and my husband had a pretty brief conversation about it. I kind of had my mind made up as far as what I wanted to do. I just didn't think that there was even a decision to be made. I knew that was what we needed to do. And so we talked it over. The doctor stepped out, and we made the decision to have the operation. So I was actually in the hospital. My doctor's office is connected to the hospital that I was actually going to labor in. And so once she came back in the room, we told her that, we're going to go ahead and do the procedure. She sends me up to labor and delivery. And this was really just all a matter of minutes. I get up to labor and delivery, and it was not even a 5-minute walk. I go up to like the 11th floor to labor and delivery. They get me checked into the room. And I go into the room, and I have to use the restroom. They're trying to get all the machines hooked up, and they're telling me, what they're going to actually do. And, the doctor's going to call me and let me know when surgery is going to take place, which will probably be that afternoon. And at this time, it was about 11 a.m. in the morning. So it was still fairly early. I actually, I used the restroom, and I remember just peeing, and I just continued to feel fluid, just steady flowing. And I knew in that moment something was wrong, but I didn't know, I just wasn't registering that, my water broke, but I assumed that that's what it was. And so I literally screamed my husband's name, and I said, Ed, I think my water just broke, and I need the nurse to come in here. And he came in there, and again, fluid was still just flowing out at this point. I knew that I was no longer urinating. It was fluid. And so I remember getting back in the bed, the nurse telling me that they needed to test it to see if it was my amniotic fluid, and that at that point they weren't sure if it's my water, but it could have been. And so I had to wait to actually do this strip test where they tested the fluid to see if that's what it was. And the strip test came back positive, and they basically said, yeah, your water has broken. And so basically I had to wait till my doctor came up to actually talk to me, which there was a couple of hours that kind of transpired in between that time. So we were just waiting to find out what exactly the next steps were. But in this moment, I didn't realize that, the pregnancy couldn't be salvaged. In my mind, I was just assuming that, I'm going to deliver another baby that's premature. And, this is just what it is. And so my doctor finally came up maybe 2 or 3 hours later, and she came and sat on the bed and she told me, "I'm so sorry. I didn't expect this to happen. Your cervix looked completely fine. And I felt that we had time to operate, but I just did not see this coming." And she says, we've got a choice, we've got a decision to make. And so, what followed was it was devastating. We basically were told that we had to make the decision to basically allow my body to just continue to labor naturally as it would have done, or to, have some intervention to terminate the pregnancy, because at this time, the baby was only 20 weeks and 5 days old. The baby wasn't considered viable in the state of Texas. And so there was nothing that they would be able to do to save the baby in the event that I do deliver. And so basically there was no choice that, we basically had in that moment. So over the course of about 3 days, I stayed in the hospital, and my body just kind of was really just, I think, just in a state of, I can't even think of the word, but really just nothing really transpired over the next 3 days. And we decided, after we spoke with a neonatal doctor the following morning, after we got some statistics on whether or not we could make it to 24 weeks without any of my fluid, what was the state of his condition going to be in, if his quality of life would be worth me attempting to try to get to 24 weeks where they actually could intervene, and what that actually meant for his life. And the neonatal doctor came in Saturday morning and really just explained it very plainly for us, and basically just told us that, the baby just didn't have a very high chance of survival. And I was really too far from 24 weeks, to even give him a fair chance. And that if he did survive, there would be lots of neurological issues, and his quality of life would be very low. And so on Monday morning, March 25th, we actually went ahead and delivered Emery. And it was about 3 a.m. in the morning, and we delivered him. And he weighed about 14 ounces. And he was alive for about 45 minutes before I physically saw him pass away. And he was moving. We were able to spend some time with him. But, we knew once everything transpired Friday that, our chances of actually seeing this, it was coming to an end. And so we just had to, just power through it as best we could. But again, up until this point, I still didn't understand, how we got to where we were. So that's what happened.
Wow, thank you so much. So what did you all do next? Take us on the next steps of the journey. Did you all have a memorial for him? Were you able to spend, you mentioned that you spent some time with him before you actually had to give him back to the hospital. Take us on the next steps of that journey.
Yeah. So yes, I will say we were able to spend as much time as we wanted to. My sister actually came up to the hospital during delivery. And I think what was really crazy about all of it was they treated it as if, this was just a normal delivery. I was put in a bigger room to labor in. But I only had just my main OBGYN and then a nurse assist with the delivery. And labor happened really quickly. And once he came out, they set him on my chest. We did skin to skin. And we really just got to spend, some intimate time with him before he passed. And they told me that I was able to, see him at any point in time while I was at the hospital. And up until this point, they walked me through some of the options for the hospital and, what my options were if I wanted to bury him or cremate him, or go through their service. And so the hospital that I actually labored at, they offer a program called Tiniest Angels. And it's a program where they facilitate the remains of the baby and actually hold a memorial later on for basically all of the babies that, have passed away in whatever fashion of the year, during that year. And so we decided that Saturday that that's what we would do. And I believe we decided to do that just because we didn't want to drag that out any longer. And we didn't want to have a funeral just because of, for the sake of our daughters. we just didn't want to drag that out just because I knew that that would have been another week or so of planning. And so we decided to go through that program. But the day that he actually arrived, they told me that they would take him away and they would dress him and they would do a photo shoot as if, you know, he was a newborn baby, alive and kicking, and that they would make me a memory box just in his memory of, you know, the things that he had on and his wristband, footprints, fingerprints, and, you know, just all those things that are typically in the memorial box for, you know, a loved one. And they told me, you know, hey, anytime you want to see him, call us and let us know. And so later that day, we had lots of family that came up to actually visit with him and physically hold him and see him. And I hadn't made, you know, we hadn't really made a decision yet if we wanted our daughters to actually see him. And I remember my family coming up to the hospital, and my oldest brother, he asked, you know, are you going to let the girls see him? And I was just like, you know, I just don't know. You know, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. If that's, you know, something that I'm going to regret later, you know, I'm not sure. And I remember him telling me that, you know, listen, that is their brother and this is a part of their life, and you don't want them to ever feel like you didn't give them a chance to see him, no matter what state he's in. That's their brother, and this is their moment as well. And it just resonated with me because, you know, I felt just protective of the, you know, everything that was taking place. And I know that everything just happened so quickly, but I didn't want to traumatize them and, you know, put them in a position where they felt, you know, unaware and, you know, just emotional about what was actually happening. And I knew that a lot of it hadn't even been, you know, processed yet. But I realized in that moment that he was absolutely right. So we decided to let them see him. And during this time, we kind of had kept them out of the room while some of the family was visiting with them. But then once I decided to allow them to see him, we brought them both in. And it was really just a beautiful moment. I'll never forget it. We were able to take some family pictures with him, you know, all of us holding him. And my oldest, she broke down, and it really just sunk in. But I believe in my heart that I am so grateful that I did allow them to see him and, you know, to be able to look at his face. And that's going to always sit with them, you know, for the rest of their lives. So very happy about that moment. We actually did get to do several memorials over the course of the last 7 months. There was just different things that went on during the year with, obviously, Mothers Enduring Neonatal Death of the Men organization. And then we also had the actual Little Angel, Tiniest Angels Memorial just 2 weeks ago. And so that we actually did, they pretty much facilitated it like a funeral. We went to the grave site where they actually placed the remains of all the babies, and they did an entire ceremony in their honor. And we were able to actually have, you know, a balloon release, a bubble release, and they had lots of beautiful poems and stories that were written by, you know, some speakers that were there. And we also had a pastor that actually spoke to, you know, all of the loved ones that had lost a baby. And shortly after everything happened, we also had a very just personal and, you know, intimate memorial where we did a balloon release where we, you know, kind of talked to some of our family and friends for the first time and just kind of told them what had actually happened. But yeah, we've had several memorials throughout the year to just commemorate him. And I think that that's probably going to be an ongoing thing, definitely for me and my daughters. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster for sure.
One thing I love about what you just said is that your hospital gave you the options. You know, a lot of hospitals don't always have the options that are there where they'll give you, you know, many different ways that you can memorialize your baby. And I'm happy that the hospital that you were at gave you the option, and then they did some type of ceremony. That is amazing. And definitely not the norm. They don't normally do that at all. Just give you a list and say, you know, figure it out yourself. Yeah, I love that they gave you an opportunity to do something formal with all babies, with all the babies and all the families too.
I agree.
It's always good to be in a sense of community with that, and I'm happy that that they had that at their hospital, the hospital that you were at.
Yeah, thank you.
The other thing that I love too is what your brother said. You know, this is their brother. They want to remember him, and you know how we as moms always are trying to protect our children, but our children can handle so much. So I'm so happy that you agreed to allow them to hold and take pictures, because those memories you will never get back. Picture evidence of spending time with your baby boy before you had to let him go. So awesome.
Thank you.
So now where are you on your journey? Been mom since you've gone through this. How has your grief and your healing journey been?
Oh, that's such a question, right? It really has been a roller coaster for me. I will definitely say I am in a better state of mind now, probably than I have been. And it definitely every day just gets a little easier, a little better, and easier to talk about. There was a point where I couldn't even, word what happened. I just couldn't even repeat what happened without getting emotional. And even now, there are certain things that I go back to in my mind, just visuals of what happened, and it's very triggering. But yeah, it's been a journey, and I've had a lot of support, thankfully, from my husband and my family and friends and my church, and my life group, and lots of women that I have met online. I mean, when I tell you the online community has really and truly inspired me, and they have opened my eyes to just a totally different realm of motherhood that I was completely unaware of. Going into my third pregnancy, I feel that I was very naive about the problems and the complications that we as Black women have during pregnancy, and really the biased treatment as well. And I personally feel that I was brought through this journey for that reason, to become aware of that and maybe help someone else. But lots of what helped me along the way is a lot of reading. I really went into a lot of research, just trying to figure out what happened to me. Unfortunately, at that moment, even up until the day that we delivered, we really didn't have a good idea as to what happened. There was still no understanding of why my cervix just opened up. Even I didn't understand or was told the term incompetent cervix up until that moment. And so I didn't see that terminology until I started researching. And so until I went and I got online and I found all these different forums, I found, just all these different communities of women who had experienced the same thing. And I was just like, wow, that sounds like my story. That sounds just like what happened to me. And so a lot of what I did was research. I researched and I went back and I demanded a conversation with my specialist, because I wanted to understand how I got to that point. And, what did we not see or recognize in my appointment 4 weeks prior to that appointment where everything just went wrong, and what exactly does this mean for me going forward? Those were all the questions that I had, because, we do still want to have another child, and we're very hopeful that we can. But I definitely was so fearful that this meant that this was going to happen to me again and again and again and again, not understanding what even happened and not getting a real answer from a doctor was just so frustrating. And so that played a part in my grief, definitely. Just trying to find peace and clarity in what happened to me. And once I found that, and I found that it became a little easier for me. And I then kind of knew how to navigate through my feelings and what I wanted to do, moving forward, which we did quite a bit. So I don't know if you want me to go into that now, but, we definitely decided to kind of put things in our own hands at this point, because I definitely still didn't have, the answers to the questions that I was looking for.
No, definitely go into that. And one thing I would like for you to add is really like, how has your husband grieved? How has your girls? How have they dealt with the grief? And just tell us how you all have worked through it as a family.
So my husband, in the beginning, when everything happened, it was very raw for him. And I have actually, I've been right by his side when he's lost, his mother and his grandmother and his closest uncles. I mean, really just his closest family members through our entire relationship. And I've seen him grieve, you know, for all of those people. But when we lost Emery and we lost this pregnancy, there was something that I'd never seen before. And it was, you know, vulnerability. And I saw him, you know, demonstrate, you know, he didn't know what to do in that moment. And even now, he doesn't know how to fix it, you know, and he realizes that, and he carries that. I think he carries that burden of, you know, not being able to change the outcome. And just the unknown, you know, he has his days where, you know, we've grieved together and we've cried and we've prayed and just talking about, you know, what could have been, you know, but it also, I think it helps, you know, for us to move past it and, you know, to really make peace with it. And the actual delivery itself, I think, was probably the hardest for him, because we had a little glimpse of hope during the delivery. And we, you know, I think we wanted to pretend as if we were going to be able to take him home. And, you know, this really wasn't happening. But, you know, I saw a light go off in him temporarily when it all happened, because this was going to be his firstborn son and something that he was really looking forward to. You know, he was looking to go, you know, to make plans with him. And he is definitely grieved much harder for his child. And I believe that, you know, this is the greatest loss anybody could ever experience. And I've witnessed that in my husband. I've seen him break down, you know, when the girls are breaking down and they have their moments. My youngest, she actually in the beginning, she would draw pictures of him. She would draw pictures, like family pictures, where she would include him. And it would be, you know, just the sweetest thing. She'd come home from school and she would tell us, you know, here's our family picture and Emery's right there. And there was a point in time where I was fearful that she wasn't going to understand, you know, what was really happening. But she did. She grasped that, you know, Emery wasn't going to come home and that he was in heaven and looking over us as a family. And my oldest, it was very rough for her. And I think she's kind of still navigating through her grief. You know, just as we, you know, move on with our lives, there are things that I think trigger both of them when they see different babies, or, you know, we see something that reminds us of the baby, or just pregnancy in general. But my oldest, she definitely had a moment where, you know, she didn't want to go to school and she didn't want to face people. She didn't really want to talk about it, but talking about it helped. And definitely just lots of low days, you know, whereas she's just a social butterfly and she typically wakes up and likes to, you know, plan her day. And I would see those days, you know, very few and in between. And, you know, it was definitely a journey for both of them. But I know now that we're all much stronger than we were when it all happened, because it was all very raw. And like I said, it all just happened so fast. We went from announcing the pregnancy to, you know, grieving. And, you know, even now, it blows my mind just how fast time goes. And it's just a testament that, you know, life goes on, because it's been 7 months, but it feels like we're still just stuck in that moment of, you know, losing him. And so it's definitely been hard. But when I did do all of my research, I, you know, obviously discovered, and I self-diagnosed myself with incompetent cervix. Once that happened, I started to look into different treatment options, you know, and really researching what all of these treatment options meant. And I, again, was unfamiliar with what the TVC was, the regular cerclage. I had never heard of that cerclage before. And so I didn't even understand what that was. I just knew that, you know, this is what my doctor's telling me that I should have gotten to have saved the pregnancy. And so once I started to research and I found all these different groups, I found Abby Loopers. That was one of the biggest ones that I found online. That led me into my research about the transabdominal cerclage. And that is something that just piqued my interest immediately, because I was able to decipher between the both like really quickly. And it really didn't make sense to me why I wasn't offered, you know, or not that I wasn't offered, because obviously I was pregnant, but why I had never heard of the transabdominal cerclage, but I had always heard about the TVC. And so I started to really see why, because a lot of people that I talked to started telling me that, you know, it's known as a radical approach to preventing IC, but a lot of women just aren't really aware of it, is really what the bigger problem is. And so that's when I really just discovered that, you know, there's a what I felt like is a better treatment that's out there for women. It's just not being broadcasted. And so I went into, you know, just discovering doctors and researching all the doctors across the country that do the surgery. I looked at a couple of doctors here in Dallas, and then I was led to Dr. Haney. And I actually, after I had a consult with Dr. Fogwell in Dallas, Texas, we made the decision between Dr. Fogwell and Dr. Haney. I had a completely different consultation with Dr. Haney that lasted 2 hours long. And Dr. Haney was super compassionate. I just really fell in love with his character and just the way that he explained everything to me. And we decided very quickly that we wanted to have this procedure done. And I think the biggest thing for me was the fact that I could have the surgery before I got pregnant again, you know, to kind of give me that peace of mind that if I do get pregnant, there's a bigger chance that this will not happen to me if I have this protection. And so, you know, we just sat and decided to have the surgery just this past August. And we had the surgery on August 2nd. And healing was pretty smooth. I think I had maybe a rough 5 or 6 days, and then I was back into my regular routine. But yeah, I had the surgery. It's been about 2 months or 3 months now, and still just kind of recovering from that. But you know, we're definitely hopeful that we will, you know, soon fall pregnant again. So
Yes. So what other tools or resources have you used to help you? I know you said you did some research. You used Abby Loop. Were there any other books or things that you read, or any podcasts or anything that you gleaned as you continue to heal?
So your podcast was one of them, Sisters in Laws, for sure. I came across, again, Abby Loopers. There were lots of groups on Facebook that I became a part of, experiencing Incompetent Cervix, mothers who've experienced PPROM, just lots of, you know, they're closed groups, but they're on there. And the way that I actually found a lot of those groups was Abby Loopers. I'll say I feel like that was really the catapult for everything else. Just some of the women that I connected with on Abby Loopers, they led me into these other forums. Instagram has been a big source of a lot of the information that I found, and a lot of the information that you won't see if you just don't know what you're searching for. And it's really about like looking for specific hashtags and, you know, finding the exact information that you need by the hashtags, which is so crazy. But I remember just several nights I was online and I was searching Abby Loopers. I would search the hashtag Abby Loopers, and I came across, I believe there was a story of a woman that she went viral from, I believe, a YouTube video. And her story is actually the one that led me to the Abby Looper site. And then I ended up seeing her blog, and then I saw a couple of other folks' blog from the Dallas area. And I was just like, wow, like this information is really here. You know, you just have to know what to look for. Yeah, those were some of the sources that I used. And since we've actually started our YouTube channel, I've come across so much more. Your page has actually, you know, still just giving me so much information every day, because I really made it a priority to share that information on our page as well, just because I feel like in the beginning, you know, I wasn't aware of a lot of it. And like I said, I feel like I became a part of a very special community of women who've experienced this. But again, until you go through it, you don't know that these women exist, and you don't know what this looks like until you go through it. So yeah, that's what I did.
Awesome. So share with us more about your YouTube channel, and then where can we follow you and subscribe?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's just, it's called It's a Patterson Thing on YouTube. And we obviously are a pretty social family, very tech savvy. My girls love YouTube. I love YouTube. I get on YouTube all the time for makeup tutorials and just different things if I'm looking, to learn how to do something. And I feel like it is one of the best sources out there. But yeah, we were definitely inspired to start the channel to share this journey. And there was a lot of support from just people all over the place that again, we met. I met through the forum online. And again, I don't feel like a lot of information is out there about it just on every platform. And I feel like, more women that, are brave and actually want to talk about it can just help so many people. And so I'm just trying my hardest to just really get that story out there and share with other women, because I just found comfort in knowing that there was other women that looked like me that went through this. And so, we were inspired to start it. And we just felt like it really was a long time coming. My oldest daughter wanted to start a channel a long time ago, but because she's only 12, I've always kind of been fearful of allowing her to just get on YouTube without any supervision. And, I wasn't really into doing YouTube at that time. And I just felt like this was really a good reason to do it and to really have a family-based, lifestyle and faith channel where we're just showcasing our daily lives, to just show other families that we look like them. We're normal people. We're not perfect. We're flawed individuals, but, we live a life of service and, we try to help others. And just a Black family that's trying to make it in this world. So it's on YouTube and it's called It's a Patterson Thing. We also have a Facebook page on Facebook, It's a Patterson Thing. And we're also on Instagram, The Patterson Family. And I actually run the page from my Instagram page, which is just Bell 17. And so again, I'm sure you'll probably put that information on there. But yeah, we're all over Instagram. So
yes, I will make sure I link everything in the show notes for everybody to definitely go follow their Instagram and their YouTube channel. Okay. So lastly, I would love for you to leave the listeners with some encouraging words that for those women who are out there who may be suffering with incompetent cervix or recurrent pregnancy loss, what can you say to encourage them to keep trying and keep pressing on this journey?
Oh my goodness. Well, what I will say is that there is hope, and it starts with advocating for your own health and, taking things into your own hands and not putting, your faith 100% into people who are doctors and they are human. Mistakes happen and sometimes things can't be prevented. But, you have to understand your body and you have to take, accountability for understanding your health, your history, and all of those things to put you in the best position possible. Don't be afraid to ask questions and challenge your doctor, challenge your spouse, challenge anything that just doesn't feel right to you. And, don't be afraid to ask for help and just definitely push yourself out there. Find, resources, find someone that looks like you and then has maybe gone through it before, because the biggest lesson that I learned is that I wasn't alone. And I think that there was comfort in that, and that I know I went through this and it was hard, and it's still very hard, but I'm still here and I still have a chance. I still have 2 very beautiful children and I'm still a light in this world. And my life is much more than just a pregnancy. I'm worth more than that. And again, it's just a moment in time, but life is what it is. And, we just have to make the best of it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Stacy, for sharing your story and sharing your light with us. It has been a blessing. I would like for you to just drop, again, your social where people can follow you and your YouTube page.
Okay. Thank you, Erica. I appreciate it. Again, my social media is Stacy Patterson on Facebook. My Instagram is just_Belle, BELLE 17. Our family Instagram is the Patterson family, the _Patterson family. And our YouTube channel is It's a Patterson Thing.
Awesome. Thanks again, Stacy, so much.
Thank you, Erica. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. For show notes and more information on today's guest, go to sistersinloss.com. If you have not joined our online community, go to sistersinloss.com as well as sign up for our newsletter. We want you to be a part of the community so you can know all of the events that we have planned on as Sisters in Loss. Go to sistersinloss.com, sign up for our newsletter, join our online community, and stay connected with us. Talk to you soon.